Hi, I'm Richie Zellon, and in today's lesson I'm going to show you when and how to use the minor 6th chord. This chord can be a great alternative to the minor 7th if used in the right places. It can sometimes even evoke that dark, mysterious film noir mood. If you've watched some of those old black and white TV detective shows like
It's a prank! He made me call! No, he has gun in my head! No!
You know exactly what I'm talking about. Anyhow, you can turn any minor 7th chord into a minor 6th chord by simply lowering the flat 7 down a half step. So before I show you how to use it and improvise over it, let me quickly go over the 4 minor 7 drop voicings available on the first 4 strings.
I'm going to do all of these in the key of D minor. And this is a D minor voicing with root on the 2nd string. Here's my 7th, my flatted 7th. If I bring that down half step, I have a D minor 6th chord. The next voicing would be one with root on 3. So my root is here. My flatted 7 is on the 1st string, and I'm going to bring that flatted 7 down half step. And I have another minor 6th voicing. Then we have root on 1. That's my D. This time, my flatted 7th is on the 4th string, so I'm going to bring that down half step. And that's another minor 6th voicing. And finally, root on 4. And this time the 7th, the flatted 7th is on the 2nd string, so I'm going to bring that down here from a C to a B natural. And I have another minor 6th voicing.
Now that we have our 4 minor 6th chords, let's add some upper extensions wherever possible to add yet more color to them. Before we can do this, we need to determine what scale generates this chord. Well, in this case, at least 2 scales come to mind, the Dorian and the melodic minor. And that is simply because both have a flat 3, a perfect 5th, and a major 6th, which constitute the makeup of this chord. And it so happens that the 2 scales also have a 9 and an 11 available as upper extensions. Therefore, let's see what inversions we can place these extensions on.
If I take this D minor 6th with root on 2 and bring that root up a whole step, I now have a D minor 6th with a 9th. Remember, this is an implied root here. Now if I bring the 5th down a whole step, I have a D minor 6 with a 9 and an 11th. Now this voicing looks exactly like a G13th, so don't let that confuse you. But we'll talk more about this shortly. The other voicing that lends itself to add upper extensions is the root on 1 voicing. And if I bring the root up a whole step, I have a D minor 6 with a 9 up here. Remember, the implied root is here. And I can also bring the 5th down a whole step. And for those of you who can stretch, we get this D minor 6, 11, and 9 voicing.
The two remaining inversions are not practical for this procedure, so we'll skip them and move on. So I know many of you are probably wondering, where can I use this chord? First of all, you can substitute any 1 minor 7 chord for a 1 minor 6 as long as there is no flat 7 in the written melody. Let me play a few measures of 4 standards that have a 1 minor 7 chord but no 7th in the melody, so you can hear what it sounds like with the minor 6th chord in the background.
So I'm going to play all of these in the key of D minor for easier comparison. First, let me play Summertime. And if I'm correct, this is the original way that Gershwin wrote it. The rest of the song. Just want you to get an idea of how some of these standards sound against this minor 6th chord background. Another one that comes to mind is Softly as in a Morning Sunrise. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we have the old Jerome Kern classic, Yesterdays. Another one is Alone Together. Here it is. Second, you can use it when comping over a tune that hangs on the 1 minor chord for several measures. Two great examples are modal tunes such as So What and Impressions. The 1 chord on a minor blues progression is also a good place. Now, before I share some insight on how to improvise over this chord, let me tell you when not to use this chord. Never use a minor 6th in place of a 2 minor 7 chord. And
The reason for this is that because the chord contains a tritone between the flat 3 and 6. It has a tendency to take on the characteristics of a dominant 7th chord. If we play the minor 6 in place of the minor 7 over the 2, and then play the regular 5-7, it sounds like the same thing. In other words, the practical effect of the original 2-5 is lost. Listen carefully.
So here, let's take first a regular 2-5, and this is a 2-5 starting in A minor. Let's go in A minor, D7, 9, resolving to G. Okay, when we play the regular 2-5 and we use a 2 minor 7 chord, when we go to the 5 chord, all that happens is the 7th, the flatted 7th, resolves down a half step, and you hear that. So you hear the progression. So if we turn the 2 minor chord into an A minor 6, and then we go to the 5-7 chord, D, see, we're just changing the root here, A to D. We almost don't hear any difference. So, not practical, and that's because we don't have that movement from the flatted 7th in the 2 chord to the 3rd in the 5 chord. So now that we have a pretty good idea of when to use this chord, let me show you 3 options to improvise over it. The first option is to use the Dorian scale and always resolve to the 6 while using the flat 7 instead as an avoid note or passing tone. 1, 2, 3, 4. The second option is to use the melodic minor. And here we don't have to worry about the major 7 as it blends beautifully with this chord. 1, 2, 3.
For the third option, I want you to go back and examine the 4 minor 6th chord shapes we looked at initially. You'll notice that if we preserve their shape and assign the root to the 4th degree of its corresponding minor scale, suddenly we are looking at a series of rootless dominant 9th chords. For example, in D minor 6, the 4th is a G. That means that this shape is also a G7 with a 9th, with an implied root.
So if we take this minor 6 voicing here with the implied root on the 5th string, it's got the 9th in here. We can look at it as a G 13th chord by just making this the implied root. In other words, the G on the 6th string here on the 3rd fret. See? The the same goes for this voicing here. If we look at it with the root here on the 5th string, it's a D minor 6. However, if this is the implied root, it becomes a G7 9. Then if we keep on going up the fretboard and look at this voicing here with this implied root, it's also on the 1st string, that's another D minor 6. But if we bring this root down and imply it on the 5th string, and make this chord, becomes a G7 9. And finally, our 4th inversion, we have this implied root here, or the octave up here, and it's a D minor 6. But if we bring the root to the 5th string here on the 10th fret, or we can look at it up here, okay, on the 15th fret, on the 6th string, they're both G's, it becomes another form of G7 with a 9th. So all of these minor 6 chords can also be visualized as G7 Mixolydian relatives. So the principle we derive here is that any minor 6 chord can be thought of as a dominant 9th chord whose root is a perfect 4th up from the minor 6 original root. And consequently, we can also improvise by superimposing a Mixolydian scale, a perfect 4th up from the original minor 6 chord's root. Let me improvise over a D minor 6 using a G Mixolydian. So here I'm going to think over the G Mixolydian when I'm playing over the D minor 6 chord. And if I throw in, like, let's say a 4 minor chord, where I'm making that a G minor 6th, I'm going to be thinking in terms of a C Mixolydian. So I'm going to play this blues in D minor 6, and it goes like this. 1, 2, 3. Concludes this lesson. If you enjoyed it and want to learn more, I want to invite you to check out a comprehensive online program I've put together. It's called the Be-Bop Guitar Improv Series and consists of 2 one-year courses covering every aspect of jazz improvisation as applied to the guitar. Please visit https://bebopguitar.richiezellon.com for more info. Hope to see you soon.